I've just spotted a rainbow and I thought I would come out for a walk and take a look at it, but sadly it seems to have faded. I often find that I see rainbows when I've reached big decisions, and I remember, oh dear, next door's dog's rather wanting to come out for a walk, I think, but it's not the sort of day to take them for one. Yes, I remember about 20 years ago when I decided to start a foundation course, an art foundation course. It felt like such a big deal, and I was sitting in a cafe and I saw a rainbow, and it felt like, well, actually, yes, let's just do it. So I did it, and it did change the course of my life, that decision that day. And just these last few days, I suppose, I've been tiptoeing around a different sort of decision, and I think I have come to a conclusion about it. So seeing that rainbow today feels like a lovely thing. It'd be nice today if you'd like to join me on a short walk here at home. Oh gosh, already a bit breathless, and I haven't got very far. I'm just walking up the path to the gate, not the one at the end of my garden, but the one at the opposite end, the side of the hill where I live, the one that takes me up past the horizontal oak trees and up to the copse of oak trees, which I've walked many times with you now. And it is, along with the walk by the River Usk, my sort of go-to walk. And today feels like the right day to do that. I shall just pause while I clamber over the gate. There, you can see my beloved horizontal oak trees, or certainly you can see the one that I usually sit on. You might just be able to see the other one past it. Often during the spring and summer, it's not as easy to see from the path because of all the leaves, but the leaves are on the ground and not on the trees. So we can see them. I'm not going to go and sit on them today because it's quite a wet day. It has actually stopped raining just now, so I'm taking advantage of that to have a stroll. But I might come back when it's a little drier with a cup of tea for a sit, but not just now. Oh gosh, I'm really enjoying what I was talking about during the last podcast about really dipping my feet quite deeply into this idea of just going with the flow and seeing where it takes me. I've had a few indicators that it's the right thing to do just recently. Last week I had to cancel an appointment, and I do hate cancelling appointments. But when I did, the person that I'd cancelled with wrote and said that she was actually quite relieved that I had, because she was having rather a difficult day with lots happening in it, and had thought to cancel with me. So that felt good, that it is possible for things to work out for everybody if perhaps we're a little in tune with what's right for us. I don't expect that's always the case, but it was rather nice that it was that time. And earlier on last week I had to drop someone off at the station, and I decided that I would go and sit in my current favourite cafe for a while and have a cup of tea and something to eat. And whilst I was sitting there, someone appeared that I haven't seen for ages, and we sat and chatted together, and that felt like a really good thing. That sort of coincidence. She had an hour to kill between appointments, and I just decided to go in. I will show you the hill I've walked up, so that my breathlessness doesn't just mean that I'm unfit, which I probably am. But actually it's quite a climb. And walking and talking isn't the easiest thing to do. Oh gosh. So yes, had a really lovely time in the cafe with her. So yes, both of those things have sort of helped me feel that it is right to be working in a way that feels right for me at the moment. Just seeing what happens. We shall see how things develop. Oh gosh. One day I'm going to keep walking down through this gateway. I think I've probably said that to you before. But not today. Today I'm taking my well-trodden path. And you can see how well-trodden it is. Though I think that's sheep rather than me. But it does feel nice, today at least, to have at least some experience of walking down a well-trodden path, a familiar path. A lot of things feel a bit new and unfamiliar at the moment, which isn't a bad thing, but it is nice to have some familiarity as well. So a walk at home today for this episode of the Go Gently podcast does feel like a good thing. Oh gosh. My battery is just telling me it's getting low. So I'm hoping that we will keep filming until we get home, but if for any reason I abruptly disappear, that's the reason why. I love coming around this corner and then just getting here to the edge of this hill and looking down towards home. That's the distance I've come. It's not very far in distance, but it's quite a way in climbing that little group of white houses. Mine is the nearest one. You might just be able to make out the roof of my studio. I don't know if you can very easily on the film, but I can see it because I know where it is. Ounce almost joined me today for this walk, but it was still raining as I came out the door, and he decided it wasn't the thing to do. So he rather sensibly just gone back to sit by the fire. But I think a little walk today, it's a bit of a punctuation in my day. I'm being very at home, very sitting at home on the sofa days at the moment, just doing a little bit of work, going out to my studio occasionally, but mostly I'm at home sitting, and a little punctuation in that is a nice thing. Coming out just for a little stroll with you feels like a good thing. I wonder if you can see the changing colours. I don't know, the last time we were here was a couple of weeks ago, I think, and I wonder if the colours were more marked then. Actually, they're more muted now, but well, my phone did run out of energy, and I think probably I did too. A few days ago, it's a few days since I was standing almost in this exact spot, taking you on the walk we've just been on, and I was just about to talk about the changing colours, or the more muted colours that we've got as the autumn is turning into winter, and my phone decided that it would stop. I did record a little extra footage to add to my Patreon page, and whilst I was doing that, the camera died on me again, so I rather liked that sort of symbolism of energy running out and just having to stop. So I did stop, and I've been thinking for the last couple of days whether to use the walk we've just done as part of this podcast or whether to do a new one. And this morning I woke up and the sky was this beautiful red. It's losing some of the red now, but it looked quite amazing. And I thought, well, I could actually walk up to where I'd stopped recording. I was forced to stop recording and just do the final bit of the walk. So that's what I've done this morning. We have a saying in Wales, and I'm sure it's elsewhere too, but red sky at night, shepherd's delight, but red sky in the morning, shepherd's warning. So stormy weather possibly on the way. It doesn't feel like it this morning. It's so still, so beautiful, but I do wonder. We've had a lot of rain yesterday and in the night. It was quite nice to lie in bed listening to the rain, but also very nice to wake up this morning and find this beautiful, still, quiet morning. And I'm glad I just got up. I've been having a rubbish few days, haven't really been able to do very much the last few days, and it was nice to wake up this morning and feel like I wanted to do something and I could do something. And I think part of this ongoing experiment with going with the flow is about that. It's about, on the bad days, accepting that and not trying to push things, and on the better days just to embrace them and enjoy them and make the most of them, and even within days as well. So maybe the rest of the day isn't going to be energy filled, we will see, but right now it's been so lovely to come out here and walk up the hill. I sort of came out quite quickly. I didn't put a big coat on, I didn't put my scarf on, which I actually had intended to do, but I didn't bother. And it's okay, actually. It's warm enough, or not too cold, that I can be out here at the top of the hill and just enjoy the air. I've lost track of the time a bit. I think when I came out I was thinking it was 7:30, but I wonder if it's a little bit later than that, because I think sunrise here at the moment is about 8 a.m. and it's not quite up yet. You can see behind me, it appears for those trees. Obviously it's up before it appears those trees, because it's got to get up the top of the hill, but I wonder if it's more like 8 o'clock. I don't know. I've only had one cup of tea so far today, so I'm looking forward to heading home, putting the kettle on and making myself a pot of tea. And I'm also planning to have a bath this morning. I've been heating some water for a bath, so that'll be good. And I suspect it's going to be rather lovely to have a feeling of accomplishment that I've done a little something this morning already. There's still quite a lot of red in that sky, isn't there? Can you hear the birds waking up? And the field here is very quiet and empty too. I don't know where the sheep have gone. And they've got quite a range that they can go on. They're probably because they've headed off through that gate, I expect, but often they are here in the mornings. I can look out of the window and see them. In fact, let's follow this track. This is one of the sheep tracks. Let's follow this, if it's not too steep, back to my garden gate, walking quite carefully. I've just been recording a little bit extra footage to put on my Patreon page, and I was saying that whilst it's quite chilly, it's not frosty, which is good because it makes walking, albeit gingerly, easier. I do like following these little sheep paths. I'm sure the sheep know a thing or two about the quickest, safest route between places. It would be interesting to do a little map of sheep routes. I've got to see it ahead of me now, but I can just sort of make it out. I don't know if you can. It is actually about to come to an end, I think. In fact, it looks to me as if it heads off in two directions, and we're going to take this steeper one down towards the fence. Sometimes when I'm in my studio, I can hear a chomp, chomp, chomp noise, particularly when the weather's colder, and it's the sheep munching on the bushes along the fence line. There's an awful lot of bush at the moment to munch on. In fact, I wonder if it was more of a summer thing. I think it might have been because it was such a dry summer, actually. I think it probably was. I think probably because it was so dry, there wasn't so much greenery, and they were hunting for every bit they could find, which would also explain why there isn't very much hedge left along here. So this is the hedge line along my neighbour's garden now. Along mine, you could just probably see the blue of my studio. Maybe not just, well, you might be able to make out the roof and the little shed that sits next to it. Oh, so there we are, almost home. So a walk completed over about 4 days with a large gap in the middle. But I'm jolly glad that I came out today, or on Friday. I think when I started this, or was it Saturday? I can't remember now. When I saw that rainbow and was just enticed out for a walk. I'm glad I did it, even though perhaps, well, the energy obviously wasn't there at all sorts of levels for doing all of it, but that's okay. I've been able to do a little more another day, and that's okay. Here we are, back at the gate. Do stay tuned if you'd like to join me for a 20-minute work session, and we can get down to that in a little while. Take care. See you soon. Good morning. It's very early. I'm very wrapped up. Excuse me. Oh, I woke up probably about 4, I think, this morning, and at about 5 o'clock I decided just to start to have a day. So I've been in the kitchen baking a second batch of mince pies. If you've been following my vlog posts over on Patreon, you'll know that this past week has been about making mincemeat and making mince pies, which has been rather lovely. Kitchen smells really good whenever I make, well, the mincemeat, which took me a morning to make, really infused the kitchen with the smells of winter spices and brandy. It just smelled so good. But every time I make some mince pies, I get a little infusion, a re-infusion of those smells, and it is good this morning. Yeah, I woke up, found I had a little bit of pastry left in the fridge. Thought I would see how many mince pies I could get out of it. And I almost got a full batch. I've got a tin that makes 9 mince pies, and I made 7 and a little one. A little bit of leftover pastry at the end I sort of made into a mini pasty. So I have with me one of my mince pies, which I shall use as a treat a little way into today's creativity session. And it would be lovely if you would like to join me. That's Ounce just going out. He's been sitting with me for a little while. Let's wind up the timer. There we go, 20 minutes on the timer. Oh, I got coffee with me this morning as well. It felt like a coffee morning. A milky coffee. I have had tea already. In fact, I think I probably had a couple of cups of tea already this morning. But I fancied coffee to bring out here. And I wrapped up because it's quite chilly. I might take my hat and scarf off as it keeps warming. I did turn the heater on quite a while before I came out, but it's still a little bit chilly. It's not too bad. It's not exactly cold, but it just feels nicer to have a scarf on. I've got my blanket, which is now plenty big enough to cover my legs as I work on it. So it does feel quite nice. Over this week, I've been sitting by the fire with it, just doing a little bit every now and again, which has been good. So how are you? How is your week going? This podcast, this episode of the podcast has been the most going with the flow podcast that I've ever made, I think, either video or audio. Sort of circumstances and choices have conspired, I think, to mean that this has been, I've just been taking little steps with this. I think when I took that walk, the first half of the walk that you just watched, I didn't even know necessarily that it was going to be for the podcast. I thought I would just record it and I was going to put it up on Patreon. Just suddenly seeing the rainbow made me think, oh yeah, I want to go out for a walk. And I hadn't really planned what my walk for this podcast was going to be. And then when the battery on my phone just gave out midway through, I thought, oh well, no, it's not the thing to do, is it? This isn't the walk to use for the podcast. And then a couple of days later, I just thought, oh well, I could add a bit to it, couldn't I? So I did, and it felt right that it could be the podcast walk. So I'm glad, actually. It feels very important at the moment, just to explore as much as possible what going with the flow means, which is what I've been doing this week. Partly because I've been feeling really rather rubbish physically. Haven't really been able to do very much. I can't really plan to do very much. I haven't been able to plan to do very much. So I've just had to make use of energy as and when it's been there and what's felt like the right thing to do. So I've sort of been thinking about, as energy comes, I'm thinking of what my next thing could be. And this morning it was to make another batch of mince pies, and then pondered a bit whether it was the right thing to do to come out here and record this creativity session, and it sort of felt like it was, so here I am. We'll just see. That's the upside of going with the flow, the good bit, when things work out. But there's been a lot of frustration this week. Feeling a bit despondent at times, thinking I'm not ever going to be able to do anything else. I need to have reminders at times like that, because I need to watch back some of my vlog posts. Yeah, I could do this, little reminders when things don't feel good, just a reminder that that isn't the way it always is, that it does pass, and that, the next step presents itself. But that's all right. I'm still here, still taking little steps. And it has been lovely this week, doing some slow baking. The thing about making mincemeat is it can be a really slow process, and I did do it in stages. There's a vlog post over on Patreon about the morning that I made mincemeat. It was a good morning. And I found a recipe for a couple of different recipes actually for making some biscuits to eat with cheese, so savoury biscuits. That's European type biscuits rather than North American biscuits, in case you're wondering. So crackers, actually, I suppose you could call them maybe. So just thin, flat, savoury biscuits. So I'm just going to leave that recipe stuck to the fridge, I think. Well, those two recipes, they're both on the same sheet of paper, and gather the ingredients together on the table, and on a day when it feels possible, I shall make them. I really am loving this sort of seasonal baking. This sort of making things that, especially the mincemeat particularly, is sort of a thing that could be used over a period of time. And actually, this year I'm using the mince pie I've got with me now is made out of last year's mincemeat. I've still got, so some of what I made this year will be laid down for next year, and I really like that. And then just making a little batch every now and again, which lasts a few days. The first batch didn't last very long. But yeah, it feels a good thing. Just little gentle steps. And yeah. So it's been a very, very gentle week, with a certain level of frustration in it, I have to admit. But I have enjoyed a lot of my week this week. I've been reading a lot. I was given a copy of Elly Griffiths. Is it Griffiths? I think it is. Her latest book called The Stranger Diaries. Elly Griffiths writes a couple of different series, and I really love her Ruth Gallagher series. I haven't read the other one, the other series she writes, but I've read all of the Ruth Gallagher, and they come out pretty much in February every year, I think, as they certainly do now. I always look forward to that. But I was looking in the paper I bought last weekend at the books page, and I saw that she'd released another book, a different book, not in either of her series, and I got a copy. I was given a copy, so I've been reading that this week. I'm really, really enjoying it. There's something about, it's a hardback, something about just sitting there by the fire reading a book, and it's sort of a whodunit, but there's a certain sort of spooky kind of aspect to it. So it's not exactly, well, actually it is sort of, there's a ghost story element to it. I should say, I won't say too much, not to give it away, things away, but yeah, and this time of year is a bit ghost story-ish, I think. There's an author called M.R. James, Victorian Edwardian, I'm not sure, I think he might have been Edwardian. He was a fellow at Cambridge, and every year he used to write a Christmas ghost story and would read it to his students, and quite a lot of them got made into Christmas sort of films, I suppose, TV, or for the TV anyway. So but it was a bit of a tradition for a while of having one released every year, and also radio versions. And a couple of years ago, a new one was made. It wasn't a new story, but it was a remake. So, and this feels similar. But I think probably part of the book is based around, I suspect, the idea of M.R. James, his ghost stories. So if you don't mind a slightly spooky whodunit, perhaps the Stranger Diaries could be something for you. I've been surprised, actually, because I do tend to avoid reading things at night, particularly before I go to sleep, that are a bit spooky or unsettling. Well, unsettling, I think. But this, I don't know, for some reason this doesn't feel too unsettling. I've actually been quite enjoying reading it in the dark. So that's been a nice part of this past week. And it's just nice to be letting myself just, as much as possible, just go with what feels right. And hoping that I can let myself do more of that. wonder what you're working on out there alongside me. I would love to hear. I've not been to reply to the comments from the last podcast yet. I will get there. Sometimes it feels like quite a hard thing to do. Don't know why. Usually doesn't take very long, but sometimes, sometimes you need to know what the right thing to say is, I suppose. So I do read all the comments, and I do try to reply to them, but I don't always get there. And sometimes if I don't get there very soon, it feels a bit like they're stale and it's a bit late. But we'll see anyway. But it doesn't mean that I don't love to hear what you're working on. So do let me know. Maybe like me, you're working on the same thing and have been for weeks. It's still good to hear that. Stopped itself ticking. I am going to have to replace that at some point. I've never really found a timer that's as good as my very first, well, I suppose it might be my second timer that I used when I first started making podcasts. It was a very cheap plastic timer from IKEA. And I bought 2 of them at the time, an orange one and a blue one. I still have the blue one, but it's not terribly reliable. And since then, I've got through quite a lot of different ones. I first started, my mother, after she died, I took her, she had a red pepper in the shape of a timer. A timer in the shape of a red pepper. Not a red pepper in the shape of a timer. And I used that for a while, but it was already quite old, so it gave out on me quite soon, I think. And then I bought 2 of these IKEA timers. I think I used the orange one first, and then I moved on to the blue one. I should have bought a whole batch, shouldn't I? And they were good, but ever since then, I mean, this one I've got now, it's stainless steel. It's lasted reasonably well, but it does get a lot of use. And it has started to stop, which is all right if it's quiet. I can hear this tick stopping, but if I'm listening to the radio or an audio book, then I might miss it, so I don't quite trust it. Maybe the right new time will present itself. And I'm sure I said many, many times that I do like timers that tick. I really like the tick. So whilst I will sometimes set my phone or my Amazon Echo for 20 minutes, it's not the same. Though I imagine they're both more accurate. And I do suspect that this timer is a little bit fast. So I do usually set it for a little bit more than 20 minutes. Ooh, it might be time for a bite of a mince pie. It's still just a tiny bit warm, which is lovely. I don't make sweet pastry with my mince pies. I just do an ordinary plain pastry, mixture of 3/4 of so 6 ounces of plain flour and white flour and 2 ounces of wholemeal, which gives it a nice bite. But I do put icing sugar on top. But I do like the the combination of sweet and savoury. They're not terribly sweet mince pies. There's not a huge amount of mincemeat in them. The mincemeat is sweet, so it's flavour and smell rather than just sweetness, which I think is one of the advantages of making your own mince pies rather than buying them from the shop, because they're often very sweet. And there's not very much sugar on top. I think I noticed this morning as I was sprinkling the sugar on that it's probably about a teaspoon, not even that actually, because I put some back in the box, in the sieve, sprinkled over all of them, and I had 8 to sprinkle them over today, so very little sugar on each one. Just telling myself that they're a good thing to eat. They're not too sweet. They do go very nicely with mulled wine of an evening. I've been mulling wine. That's something else I've been doing this week. Sorry, I hope it's not terribly rude to eat in front of you. Perhaps you've got a little snack with you as well. I do hope you've got a cup of something with you, at very least. But a little snack would be good too. Careful not to have too sticky fingers. There we are. 20 minutes, a little bit more progress. I am making gentle progress with this. I did unpick a little bit of it this week. I made a couple of mistakes that I thought I didn't mind about, and then I realised I did. So midweek, I did unpick a little bit. So I probably stitched more than it shows this week. There we are. I hope you've had a good 20 minutes. I hope you've enjoyed that walk, which spanned a few days, which felt really good actually. That feeling that I could do that I could let it span a few days and just do what felt right. And I do hope that if you feel the need to take things slowly and gently, that you can let yourself do things just when they feel right. It's not always possible, but it's probably more possible than we realise. We do have choices and we can decide what we do and what we don't do more times, I think, than we realise. And the more we do it, the easier it gets. Though also, I suspect, and I'm noticing this, the more I want it. I'm noticing very much that as I'm letting myself do what feels right, I'm much more aware of the things that don't feel right, and I'm going to do my best to change them as much as possible, so that I am, as much as possible, just doing what feels I can do. I wrote something in my journal this week about wanting to stop struggling with the things I can't do, or the things that I find difficult, and instead focus my energy on the things I can do, and just see where that takes me. And I think that's a good intention to hold. Something I want to remember in the coming weeks. Take care. If you've enjoyed this podcast, I'd be very grateful if you would give it the thumbs up if you're on YouTube, watching on YouTube. do hit the subscribe button if you'd like to know when the next one's out. I'm not going to be as regular with these as I was when I first started. I was aiming to get them out every Saturday. That's probably not going to be the case going forward. I'm going to put them up on Patreon as soon as they're finished for patrons over there, and then a few days later I shall publish them on YouTube and on my website. So the day that they're out will vary. So if you do hit the subscribe button, and I think if you hit it a second time, you'll be sent a reminder every time they come out. Or of course you can just subscribe over on the Go Gently website to my podcast, and you'll get an email when they come out. There we are. That's it, I think. If you are interested in knowing more about what I'm up to, then do come over and support me on Patreon. I have vlog posts there on a regular basis, plus a second one of these work sessions, these creativity sessions, most weeks as well, around the middle of the week. So if you're interested in either of those things, plus a little extra podcast background stuff as I make these podcasts as well, then pop over to Patreon and support me there if you can. Thanks ever so much for watching. I shall see you in the next one. Bye bye.